and welcome to healthyhouseplants.com, where we teach you all about gardening in the great indoors. If you'd like to support our show, please use our Amazon affiliate link below. Today I'm adding to my orchid series, and I am going to take this Phalaenopsis out of the moss that it came in when I got this orchid and put it into orchid bark, which is better for it. Orchids are epiphytic plants. That means they grow up trees, up into trees, hang from trees in their native habitat. They are not meant to sit in wet soil or even wet moss. And that's why the orchid bark is so important. The orchid bark is simply being used to hold the plant upright because, as mentioned, in their native habitat, they grow hanging from trees and pretty much like upside down. Showing you a picture right now of an orchid, some orchids in trees to give you an idea of how they grow. Okay, so this one, you can see I do have a little bit of new growth up there because I did prune this after it flowered. So it's a good time right now to get it out of this, as mentioned, moss. They will sell them in moss, and the problem with the moss is it just stays too moist. If you think about it, an epiphytic plant, as I mentioned, hanging from trees, is not sitting, as mentioned, in a lot of wet stuff. They do get, however, periodic rain from which gives them moisture. So that's why we want to put it in the orchid bark. Basically just keep it upright. Then we water it periodically, just like in its native habitat, it would get watered periodically from rain. Okay, so we are, as usual, like I always talk about, being mother or father nature for our plants and doing what they would get naturally in their native habitat. So I am going to, and I have a pretty outer pot for this guy. I'm going to take it out of here. I'm going to get all of this, which is not an easy task because it's really packed in there, get all of this moss out, rinse it out, and then be putting it into the orchid bark. Now this is, I have a leaf here that's kind of done. You can prune that off too when you're repotting. Also any of the terrestrial, these are aerial roots, any of the aerial roots that have pretty much died back. They look like they dried out, but more than likely they're having problems because they're just staying too moist. So I'm taking those out. Gonna reach here, get something I forgot to bring. So this helps, something like a wooden skewer to kind of work your way in here, loosen up the moss. You do want to be careful, obviously, because you don't want to harm the roots that are in here. So this is not, this can take a while to do, to get it cleared up. So you have to have some patience, be very careful with it. But you get the point here, what's happening. So you're loosening it up nicely, pulling it out. You can see how moist this is. Just not really good for the plant. I think I'm going to, let's see, getting there. And you can see too that how moist this is, how pretty sticky, moist kind of a situation going on here. This is just not, it's not conducive really to the plant growing, as mentioned, as it should be growing and growing healthy roots. There's really, roots need, and especially epiphytic roots, they need air. air circulation and air to the roots. This is not providing anything like that. This is the stake which you generally put on, especially the Phalaenopsis and a lot of the orchids. I'm going to take that out for now and put it back in when I get this into orchid bark. So continuing to just work it out as carefully as possible, as mentioned, with harming as the least amount of roots as possible. And when you do this too, so if you get, as mentioned, they are often grown in this moss. It's a sphagnum moss too. You want to wear gloves and don't touch your skin or anything when you're working with sphagnum moss. It has a fungus problem. It's some fungus in it that can irritate skin. Some people get very irritated by it, so be careful of that too. Another good reason to get rid of it. Okay, so you see we're starting to get somewhere here, starting to get some roots going on. I'll show you when I'm done what it looks like. But as mentioned, doing this sooner than later after you get a plant, because you might not want to do it when it's flowering, because you don't want to knock off flowers. But as soon as it's done flowering and you prune back the stem, you do want to try to do this sooner than later so you don't lose it. So if you've lost any moth orchids or other orchids that were potted up in this stuff, in the moss, before, that very may well be the problem. So you know, and it is possible to get them to rebloom over and over again in your indoor garden if you know what you're doing. So that's one of the reasons, or the reason, for my playlist on growing orchids indoors. Okay, so we're getting somewhere. You can shake lightly as well. In a minute I'm going to show you what it looks like, and then I'm going to rinse as well. And also you do want to prune off any dead roots. We don't want to obviously pot up dead roots. Not really necessary. So there we go. All right, so I've done a pretty good job here. It's looking good. I'm going to rinse it in a second here, seeing if there's anything else to pull out in terms of the moss being stuck in there. Liking that, liking the looks of that. Okay, I'm going to rinse, get some more little pieces off there. Okay. Now, I'm going to show you a little close-up here. Okay, so you can see here, we've got a fairly good root system still on the plant there, which is good. The greener parts are the healthier parts. You can see the brown parts that fall off, those aren't as healthy. So it's doing pretty good. Could it have been taken out of the pot sooner? Probably, but it wasn't that long ago that it finished flowering. So I'm just looking here for any pieces of root to get rid of. Now you wouldn't want to obviously take all the roots off, so depending on what's going on, you need to leave some. But you want to get the browner, ickier ones all out of there, ones that definitely don't look healthy, and leave the ones that have some green in them. Okay, so now, and I took off that one, the one dead leaf. The rest of the leaves look pretty good. So now I am doing one final check here. Here's one more. It looks like it's okay. All right, because it's got some green in it. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we are going to get it potted up into, I'm going to use this pot afterwards just to show you what it can look like. So I do like to keep these inner sleeves. I do like them when they're a little bit thicker, but this way you can see what's going on inside of the pot. because one thing you don't want to do is for the orchid bark to break down, and it will break down over time. So, and this is a medium orchid bark. It's probably better for a little bit smaller orchid bark if you can, but this will work as well. Okay, so I did that. I put some in there, putting it so on the bottom there, putting it in. And sometimes you may find that the pot is just not big enough either because they've crammed it in so tightly. So in that case, you could always go to a pot that's not see-through. But as I mentioned, I do like to see the see-through because you want to make sure that the orchid bark itself isn't breaking down, because over time it will break down as well, and it will start to become like soil. So that's obviously something you don't want. So that tells you it's time to repot at that point. So as you can see, I'm putting some in and putting it fairly tightly in here, but it's not the same as soil. There's going to be a lot of breathing room in here for the plants because the orchid bark creates air pockets as well. Okay. And remembering too, if you feel like, oh, it's too small of a pot, I don't know what I'm doing here, I don't know if that's good. Well, as mentioned, they don't even grow in pots in their native habitat. So all we're doing is providing it a place a way to stand up and grow, so that we don't have to hang it from our ceilings, and we can enjoy the flowers that way. Okay, there you go. So I have it here in there. You can see the orchid bark in there too, as well as the roots in there. Give you a good idea. Now, because generally speaking, when you repot plants, what you want to do is you do want to water. I'm going to put it in this pot for now. See if I decide on this pot I have some taller ones that I didn't bring here that might work a little bit better. But anyway, it gives you an idea of how pretty it looks once you get it done. We also want to install the stake here too, so that we can attach it the stem to it. I got to figure out what the heck I did with the little clips. There they are. These little clips work really well. Hold it up. Okay. All right. And then as I was mentioning too before I was staking it, I like to water. I do like to water everything after repotting. Just about everything that you would repot. As you saw, the roots were pretty moist. But what I'm doing here is watering actually the orchid bark, just so the orchid bark stays a little moist, so it will keep the roots from drying out. And because you don't want to go the opposite way either, where they were really moist and then they're bone dry either. So that gives you an idea of doing that. And then I won't water again until the bark is pretty much dry. Like I said, simulating that rainstorm. Oh, everything's drying out. Oh, it started to rain. So that kind of thing. Okay, so there you go. And now that it's in the orchid bark, I'm going to get some healthier aerial roots coming out of here as well. And then this is going to grow, going to get some flowering coming up. So it's going to be really, really good. Thank you for stopping by today. Please leave any comments about any indoor gardening tutorials you'd like to see. Remember to like, comment, subscribe, and share this video. And please check the bell if you'd like to be notified when new videos are released.